Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into some fascinating clinical psychology research to build a practical toolkit for handling daily stress. We so often talk about stress like it's just this heavy weather system that rolls in, right? We face these challenges, whether it's a brutal daily commute or a massive life change, and it's so easy to feel like we're just completely at the mercy of the elements. But the research actually tells a much more empowering story. Stress is a dynamic process. It heavily depends on our internal resources and exactly how we appraise the world around us. So we're moving way beyond just coping today. We're going to look at specific factors that act as stress buffers to actively build up your positive health.
Our agenda for this explainer covers three foundational buffers against stress. Number 1, positive attitude. Number 2, positive thinking. And number 3, social support.
Let's jump right into Section 1, positive attitude.
Now, having a positive attitude absolutely isn't about ignoring the bad stuff or just pasting on a fake smile. It's actually deeply grounded in reality. The clinical traits of a positive attitude start with having a fairly accurate perception of a stressful event, basically seeing things as they are without catastrophizing. It also involves taking true responsibility. You take credit for your successes, sure, but you also accept the blame for your failures, which stops you from playing the victim. Add to that a genuine sense of purpose, being open to new ideas, and having a real tolerance for different viewpoints. When you combine all of that, you get a remarkably flexible mindset. And that flexibility is exactly what you need to fight off the rigidity that makes stress so damaging in the first place.
A really crucial part of true positive health is maintaining a sense of humor, and specifically having the ability to laugh at yourself. When we get super stressed, we tend to develop tunnel vision. We take ourselves and our problems way too seriously, and that literally just amps up our biological stress response. But finding humor, especially by not taking yourself too seriously, acts like an instant release valve. It keeps life's challenges in the proper perspective so you can step back and see the bigger picture.
Moving on to Section 2, positive thinking.
If attitude is about how we anchor ourselves right now, thinking is about how we process the future. The research specifically defines positive thinking through optimism, which is the baseline inclination to expect favorable life outcomes. And look, optimism isn't some kind of magical thinking. It's just a default setting. When an optimist faces an ambiguous or daunting task, they just assume things can be worked out. This expectation is incredibly powerful, because it is directly linked not just to psychological well-being, but to your physical health too. Expecting a favorable outcome completely changes how you physiologically and behaviorally respond to stress. You can really see the stark behavioral contrast when you compare optimists to pessimists. Because optimists assume adversity can be handled successfully, they use what's called problem-focused coping strategies. They actively seek advice, ask for help, and tackle the problem head-on. Pessimists, on the other hand, anticipate disaster. Because they already think it's going to end badly, their coping strategies become avoidant. They might ignore the source of the stress, just give up on the goal entirely, or literally deny that the stress even exists. So the optimistic approach actively resolves the issue, while the pessimistic approach just lets the stress fester. And that brings us to Section 3, social support.
We've covered our internal pillars, but hey, we don't exist in a vacuum, right? Our social connections are arguably our strongest external buffer against challenges. But this brings up a really counterintuitive question. Does having more friends actually mean you have less stress? In our social media age, we constantly equate the sheer volume of our connections with our safety net. But the clinical research draws a very hard, very clear line here.
The answer is a definite no. The research highlights that the sheer quantity of your social network is actually unrelated to your well-being. Why? Because maintaining a massive network is incredibly demanding and time-consuming. It can literally become a source of stress itself. What actually improves your health is perceived support. This is all about quality. It's the deep internal belief that you belong to a network that truly cares for you. It's entirely about feeling valued and loved, not about the head count. To put that into perspective, the source points to a study involving pregnant women who were exposed to high life event stresses. The women who simply had a close friend were less likely to be depressed and actually had fewer medical complications during pregnancy. Think about that for a second. We're not just talking about feeling a little less lonely, we're talking about measurable reductions in clinical depression and real physical medical complications, all because of high-quality social support. You really don't need an army behind you. Sometimes you just need one solid person in your corner. So how does this high-quality support actually show up in the real world? Well, the text breaks it down into 3 distinct forms. The first form is tangible support. This is exactly what it sounds like: literal material aid. When someone is dealing with acute stress, they might not need a pep talk. They might just need actual physical help to lift the burden. This could involve giving them money, providing goods, or doing a service for them. A super relatable example from the explainer is a student just handing over their class notes to a friend who was out sick. It seems like such a small thing, right? But think about the stress of falling behind in class. By providing that tangible good, the notes, the friend completely removes the massive stressor of having to catch up from scratch. It's practical, direct, and incredibly effective. The second form is informational support. A massive chunk of our stress comes from the unknown, when we're facing a complex situation and literally just don't know what to do next. Informational support is when someone steps in with knowledge. They provide information about the stressful event to help you figure out what resources you need and what coping strategies actually work.
For instance, imagine a friend who has already conquered a really difficult board exam giving you the exact procedures and advice before you take it. Going in blind is terrifying, but going in after a friend has given you the ultimate roadmap, the exam is exactly the same, but your appraisal of the threat completely shifts because you are armed with information. Finally, we have emotional support. While tangible and informational support attack the problem itself, emotional support heals the person. High stress can absolutely crush your self-esteem, so emotional support is all about reassuring an individual that they are loved, valued, and cared for. The research shows this directly and effectively reduces psychological distress. It is the ultimate psychological safety net.
So here's the real takeaway for you today. When you look at your own toolkit, attitude, thinking, and support, which of these pillars needs your immediate focus? Are you accurately perceiving reality but struggling to take responsibility? Are you anticipating disaster instead of leaning into problem-focused optimism? Or do you maybe need to stop worrying about the sheer size of your social network and focus on cultivating just one relationship of deep perceived support? Resilience is not an accident, it is built. So which pillar will you start strengthening today? Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.